everybody, Karen here, the Unpinned Creative at Unpinned Creative. Right, let's get on to decorating some pages in these fairy journals. Check out my last video if you want to know a bit more about them. Basically, I created them from a large format children's book. This image here shows you the size that the book was. The cover was slightly bigger than this page, obviously, and then I cut it in half and created two journals. Today we're going to be working on these brown paper pages that I am showing you here. So there's 4 pages in total. The rest of the signature I'm keeping blank for the new recipient to decorate, but I wanted to give you some ideas on how you could decorate the pages. So let's get started with this brown paper one. These journals all have removable pages. You simply slide the page out like so. It makes it really great for doing your inking and stenciling and stamping and that sort of thing. And then you can slide it back in when you're finished, which I'll show you a wee bit later. So I'm going to work on this page here now. All of these pages are really easy and simple to do with basic supplies. First of all, I'm going to do some stenciling. I also inked around the edges of the page, but I didn't get that on camera for some reason. Next thing we want is some serviette. So I have this really cool serviette here, and I'm just picking which part of the serviette I want to use. I'm then going to remove all of the plies. This one had is 3 plies, so I had to remove 2 of those white bits. And then I'm going to take a paintbrush and a little bit of water and just go around where I want to tear that serviette. I'm sure you've all seen this done before. Lots of people use serviettes now, and this just makes it really easy to get the tear exactly where you want it. And then once that's done, we can work on attaching it to the page. So I'm going to use my homemade clear gesso. I make it myself. I love it because it's really light and it dries fairly quickly. But you can use obviously store-bought clear gesso, gel medium, whatever is your favorite medium to use. Use something light for tissue, works best in my opinion. So I lay down a layer of that and then pop the tissue down on top and then very gently apply it over the top to give that really nice translucent finish. If you keep your brush fairly wet with the glue, then you're less likely to tear your tissue. Alrighty, the next thing I'm going to do is pop a small piece of rickrack down the side. I'm just laying down a strip of glue along that edge and then pressing the rickrack down on top of it. Then I'm going to trim the rickrack with my scissors around the edge of the page. Easy peasy. And we are nearly done. Now I'm going to let that dry completely. Once that's dry completely, if you want to, I like it all rumpled and crinkly, but if you want to, you could iron the back of it to make it all nice and flat again. Now I'm just grabbing a white gel pen. You could also use a white Posca pen, and I'm just going to highlight the rabbit's ears and eyes and nose with that. I think it gives a really cool effect and makes that rabbit stand up off the page. And now I'm taking one of my fairy stamps and some black ink, and I'm going to pop that down on the page also. I'm using VersaFine ink. This is one that I picked up secondhand, so I don't know how old it is or anything like that, but I find it bleeds a wee bit, so it's not my favourite, but it works well for my aesthetic of grungy and junky kind of journal pages. Now I'm grabbing some dimensional paint. This is actually dimensional fabric paint, but use whatever you have, and just highlighting the inner parts of those fairy wings. And that's our page finished. Here it is all nice and dry, and I loved how it turned out. So we will move on now to the next page. Another easy peasy one, just a little bit of collage and again some more inking and stenciling. I start with the edges of the page this time, which is what I should have done last time, and then finish with some stenciling, just random on the page wherever I feel like it. The next thing I'm going to do is this little piece at the top. In the other journal that I just showed you, I used the bottom part of a children's book page. That was just a scrap. This time I'm just using a scrap of paper that I have and inking the edges, and then I'm going to add a couple of little stamps to give it a bit more interest, just in the same brown colour I'm using to ink the edges and do the stenciling. Despite this being in a Tim Holtz ink pad, it's not actually a Tim Holtz ink colour. I believe it's Stampin' Up, and it's something like Almost Cocoa or something like that. I am gluing the piece down with glue stick and being careful not to cover up those holes that I have punched there. The next step is to grab a little bit more of this serviette, and I'm going to take these two bunnies here using the same technique to remove them as I did on the first page. This time I don't want them quite as translucent, so I'm going to pop them down with glue stick, and I just figure out whereabouts I want it on the page, put some glue stick down. Don't try and glue stick on your serviette, it will end badly, and I'm speaking from experience here. And then I just go back in and do any edges that I missed sticking down completely. It just makes the tissue not so transparent as if you use a very wet glue. Now I'm grabbing a piece of vintage music paper, and I'm just deciding which part of the paper I want to use. So I'm going to tear a little bit about the size that I want for the page. Check that it's where I want it, not covering up too much of those bunnies. And then I'm going to remove that edge to give me a nice straight edge to line up with the side of the page. I'm just checking now what it's going to look like from the other side, because the leaves that I've punched there means you will be able to see some of the music paper from that side, and I want to check what it's going to look like. So that's what I'm doing there before I glue it all down with glue stick. Once I've done that and smoothed it out nicely, I am trimming the ends, and then I'm going to take my wet wipe and just get rid of any of that glue residue that is on the other side there. Because I trimmed the ends of that music paper, I need to remember to go back in and ink them so it's not so stark white, which I am doing now. And then we are up to the last little piece on this page, and that is a piece of vintage lace. So I'm just trimming that down to size and then sticking it in place with some more glue. I put my glue down on the paper and then press the lace into it, and then I will take a wet wipe and just dab over the top to get rid of any excess glue. That is the first two pages done. Now the third page is so quick and easy that I forgot to record it, so I had to quickly grab another piece of brown paper to show you the process. I basically just ink the edges as I've done with the other two, and I'm using the stencil that I created out of wallpaper. I then hand cut the pattern with a craft knife, and for delicate stencils like this I find it much easier to use my dauber rather than the stencil brush. It doesn't catch on everything, and it's just gives a much nicer finish. So that's what I've done there, and then I'm grabbing the other stencil and doing a little bit more random stenciling on the page. That's almost all there is to this page. So to finish it off, I have a piece of gold ribbon which was left over from Christmas, from a gift tag or something like that. I'm laying down a line of glue and pressing that ribbon into it. Doesn't matter that the ribbon's all crinkly, you could iron it if you wanted to, but it flattens out fairly well with the glue. Then I'm trimming the ends to make them all neat and tidy. You really don't want anything sticking out over the edges of the page until you've put it back into your journal. Otherwise it's too difficult to get in. This is the last element on that page, that little flower, but we can't add that until the page is back in the journal. So now we're moving on to this last page. Again, easy peasy, we're just doing stenciling, which I still hadn't started recording again yet, but basically just the stenciling like I showed you, and then we're adding a little piece of trim. This is a page trim from a children's book, and you want to check what's on the back of the trim because that is going to be visible through those punched leaves. So I wanted to pick something with pretty colours, as you can see here. So same process as we use for the music paper. I'm just using glue stick to glue that down the side over those leaves that I've punched in there, inking everything, doing my stenciling, and gluing it down with glue stick, not forgetting to dab off that glue on the other page with a wet wipe. So I apologise, I forgot to actually film that bit working on the actual page, but I hope that you can understand the process there. Now we're up to this lady that we're adding to the page. It's just another stamp, so I took a lady stamp, stamped it onto brown paper, tore her out and then inked around all of the edges, and then applied her to the page with glue stick. So once she is firmly adhered to the page with all the edges stuck down nicely, we can work on turning her into a beautiful fairy and cleaning up our mess. I really encourage you to look at what you've got and how you can use it or alter it to suit the theme that you have, that you're currently working with. So this was a 1920s lady. It's actually the back view of her with her head turned over her shoulder, and I thought she would be perfect to turn it into a fairy. Next, we want to pop the page back into the journal. This means we can start putting our 3D elements on the pages. So to do that, we simply go to the back of the signature and slide the edge of the page through that binding thread, and then jiggle it around till the crease is right in the center. Easy peasy and really good for decorating. Alright, so we can pop the flower onto this page. It's a faux silk flower. It did have a plastic sticky thing on the back that I just snipped off, and then I can just glue it down and it's fairly flat on the page. And now for these beautiful fairy wings. Also really easy to do. I just took a permanent ink and stamped some fairy wings onto some vellum, and now I'm tearing around the edges of that. Then I put a dab of glue right in the center because I want them to be kind of dimensional and not flat on the page. So just one dab of glue in the center and pop that onto my stamp. The final step is to grab the 3D dimensional paint again, and I'm just going to put a line of little dots right down the center of those wings, and then she's all done. That vellum will curl up a little bit until the glue is dry, but once the journal is closed and it's pressed between the pages, it'll flatten out a bit again. We're all done for today. Please join me next time and we will work on another 4 pages in this fairy journal. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.